so we're gonna finish our form. We have some backwards movement and some forward movement, so that this will be the third, fourth part, whatever it is, of the first form. So the last move we did, we step back with our punches. The next move, defensive move, we're gonna step back in the front stance again, down block. With the backhand, the same hand is gonna come back up, reverse block. So 1, 2, these are at the same position basically. This one's basically at my foot, this one's at my shoulder. Now, what is this? We bunkai at this. We use this as like a one-step pattern that we drill with each other, okay? I'm getting kicked or hit. Specifically, this is defense against like a low kick to the body. If they're kicking, let's say their right leg, which would be this side, kicking in towards my center, means it's coming this way at me, I'm stepping back to give more time before we make contact. I'm also changing the angle of my body a little bit to let that pass, and my hand is just knocking the leg to the side. So if I was kicking, my leg would get knocked this way. 1. Now, anytime we drop the hand, we have to bring it back up, especially if we used it to block a kick, because as soon as I kick, the hands come after, okay? So, I immediately drop to the down block and then immediately bring it back up. 1, 2, okay? If my partner is off at an angle, I might need to turn a little bit with this, like shifting like we did before, but generally this works pretty well. It's here. If they're close enough to hit me with that hand, this has to come up to protect me. In the one step, we'll add a strike to follow up on this. We do it on the other side. We step back, down block, inside out. Now, we're going to step forward. When we step forward in a front stand, we don't just do this step like this. We actually bring the foot in and shoot it back out. So it comes in a little bit and shoots it out. This gives us a little bit more thrust than if I just step like this, right? Because now I'm bringing in and pushing off of that back foot. So it gives me some power moving into that direction. The other thing, traditionally, let's say using this stance fighting on uneven terrain instead of the mats that we're used to, right? If I'm fighting and I take a step, like a normal step, and my weight is over my leg, I will trip if my foot hits something. This stance, the way I bring this foot in and out, my weight is held back a little bit. So if my foot hits something, I don't tumble over the top of it. I hit it and I can stop. So when I go, my weight is back, right? 60% back here, not 70 up here, which like some other styles do. If I did that on uneven ground, my foot hit something, I'm gonna have problems. Okay, so it's here and it probes out in front. The hand follows directly on top of that with an inside-outside block. This exact move is designed to step in and block on the inside of a hooking punch. 1, okay? Then we do the other side, 2. Then we have our final sequence of the form. Now we get into our front kicks. We're going to start it from the front stance on the very first move, but the rest will be in our back stance, which we're going to get to. So we're here. Our back leg is going to front kick, snap kick. This can be the ball of the foot, which is under here with the toes pulled back, or in this particular case, we're going to use the top of the foot. This is a kick between the legs, so we're aiming to the groin. So when I do this step, right now I'm here, I'm going to kick in the middle. Don't kick out here, right? Bring the foot in, kick down the middle. So I went here, I'm going to kick, lifting, snapping up. The movements are 1, 2, and then if I wanted to pull it back, I would put it back and going forward in the form. 1, 2, and then we land in a back stance. Our hands are going to be doing something at the same time in the form though. But the kick is simply that. Okay? Back stance is just like a horse stance, but we shift our weight to one side, 70% on the back leg, front leg is only 30, and it's facing our target. Here. The hands, this is up in the middle of my chest, right? It's out away from me. It's in a position where I can drop it to block high. I can lift it to cover my head. I can shoot it out to block on this side, right? It can move. If it's too high, I won't be able to block a low attack. If it's too low, I won't be able to block a high attack. I want to keep it right in the middle so I can move in either direction. Now the reason I can do that is because the back stance puts me farther away from my opponent. In a front stance, I'm a little bit more square. I should be able, like if I was actually striking distance, I strike with both hands. The back stance, there's no way for me to reach with my back hand at the same time. The idea of this, let's say horse stance, my head is here, front stance is here, back stance is here. There's a big difference on how far away my head and my body is from my opponent when I'm in this stance. This leg is loaded so that I can push myself forward. So we talked earlier about how to generate force or power into our attack. One of those ways is straightforward movement. So this is going to be one of those cases. When I do the kicks from here's front kicks, I will push off of the floor and throw the kick. Okay? If I just pick up the knee and kick, there's no power behind it. I'm getting power through forward movement. Right? The snap of my leg doesn't do a lot on its own. If I'm kicking with it between the legs, it's good, it does all right. But we want to put as much power as we can behind that. So, we were in this this position. We did our kick. We land here, but before these hands come here, we're doing two other things. We're doing a palm strike. So we kick. This hand is going palm strike, and we're turning rotating our shoulders into that strike. So we have a little bit of forward movement and rotational force in both of these. 1, 2. Okay. If I just, well, we'll come back to that movement. So this one is rotational. The kick is forward, snapping the foot up. The palm strike is from rotating the shoulders into that strike. So 1 strike. Now, anytime this is striking and hitting them, if I can touch them, unless I got longer reach than them, they can touch me too. Okay, so if I'm hitting here, and it depends on the circumstance, on the position I'm in relative to my opponent, on what this hand needs to do. But generally, if I'm throwing basically this jabbing palm strike, this back hand isn't here because my face is open here, so I can cover my face a little bit, but this is from a squared position. I'm not in a squared position. I'm reaching. Okay? So this does not protect my face whatsoever. Okay? If I do anything like this. What is exposed is this side of my face and this side of my face. So I'm going to cover that. So when I strike, this hand shoots across like I'm going to push away from me. This way. Okay? If I just set it there and it gets hit, it's going to pop me in the head. If I'm pushing that forward, it's strong enough to, if not stop, it will stop some things. At the very least, it just takes some of the impact off of it. Okay? So it may not stop everything, but it protects most of my head, and it provides like a little bit of a barrier. So I'm kicking, this is striking, this one at the same time is here. So they both go out this way. Okay, this in front of the face. Don't hit yourself in the face. You've gone too far. Go straight behind the hand. So this one's here, that one's directly behind it. Okay? And I can pull it back a little bit, but I have to keep pushing that forward. Right? So this protects a hooking punch coming to the head here. My palm should catch that. If they aim up towards the fingers, they'll probably get through. So make sure you reach across far enough that they're not just clipping to the top of your hand. You want to catch it with the bottom of your palm. If this is pretty sturdy, it starts to move you a little bit, okay? But generally, people's going to hit this. If they hit through it, you're at least taking some of the power off of that, okay? So, 1, 2. Now, the other thing about this is I'm protecting my jaw on both sides because it's going to disrupt the audio, but I'm inside my hand, okay? My jaw is protected all the way around, so there's no clipping the jaw, right? If I'm here, it might pop me, but it's not clipping the jaw, which could knock you out pretty easily. Okay, well, maybe not easily, it depends. A good clip doesn't have to be powerful if they really get your head turned and move the jaw. So this protects the jaw. If my head's low enough, if this is high enough, it actually protects like my temple area too, but only on the front side. The back side is still exposed. My nose is tucked in, so even like getting hit in the nose, I'm taking that off limits too. So I am in basically this position. Okay, I call this a cross cover. It's in Wing Chun, it's kind of a Wu Sao. Okay, but we're hitting one same time, and then they immediately pull back to a fighting stance. Right? It can come to the chest. Sometimes I tend to leave this one a little bit higher, but here is good if I'm far away. If I'm closer, the hand will come up a little bit higher. Okay, if I need to protect my head more, it'll be up higher. So 1, 2, then we do the same thing in the form on the other side. So after I hit, I come back, then 1, 2, right? Hit, back. My hand is in between my nose and my opponent's nose, the front hand, okay? If it's too far out, I get hit down here. If it's too high, I get hit down here. If somebody's tall, this is open, okay? But if I lower it, they can punch over the top. So I want to just create a barrier between my nose and their nose, at the very least between my shoulder and my nose and their shoulder, which is basically the same, okay? Depends on height, but basically the same. So we did 1, 2. Now the next 2 and last moves of the kick are going to be a front kick again, but this one is going to be a forward strike and not an upward strike. So our first one was up between the legs. This one is with the ball of the foot extended, the toes back. I'm aiming in the form towards the center of the chest or above, okay? So top of the chest makes somebody move backwards when you hit them. Down here makes their hips go back and their head comes forward, which is why we follow up with the palm strike. If I hit low and make contact, their head will come forward. So I'm going here and then hitting their head as it comes towards me, okay? With this, I kick up here, they're gone. They're not going to be standing there if I make a good kick, okay? Because I'm going to knock their shoulders back and knock them away from me off balance. So the last 2 kicks from our fighting stance, we thrust forward and snap forward. And again, I'm aiming toward the chest. So from the side view, it looks like this. And my hands, as I'm kicking, cover my head, essentially, okay? If I'm fighting back here, my hand's out. If I'm square and closer to my opponent, my hands can be more in to protect my head, because my head is closer to them now. So as I'm kicking, I protect my head here, because if I miss, if they block, if they move to the outside, especially of my leg, and they're over here, and I did something like this, my head's exposed and they punch me in the head. So cover that. So when I kick here, and then I knock them back so I can lower the hands back to their position. We have those 2 kicks. That ends the form. All those moves together represent all the techniques that I want a new student within a short period of time to understand. The only thing extra that they would be required to know are using a couple of the movements out of the forms for drill purposes, and I'll explain those in a different video.